I think you've all heard this parable of what is called in the West the Good Samaritan. This Samaritan person that had mercy upon someone who he didn't know that got beaten up. Notice how the Lord starts this parable. A certain doctor of the law came to Jesus tempting him. Lawyers tempt in various ways. In fact, of all the careers, I think if you could call it that, that were known at that time, the Lord condemned the lawyers, I think, more than anybody else on account of the way they operated. Frightening thing, isn't it? Especially when you put that into our own contexts, and we have experience of that ourselves, like not to be judging every lawyer, because there are some which are exceptional people and do help in getting others into rightful and just means. But certainly there is also a big batch of them which use this law, whatever that law might be, to their own ends in various ways. Doctors do the same today as well, and the infrastructure for them to be allowed to do that has been well set in place for several decades. In any case, this particular parable has many facets to it. For some of you who may not have heard about some of these before, I might just quickly go over. The Lord asks who is, or he's telling this lawyer to explain who a neighbour is, a neighbour. And apparently it turns out to be the one who shows mercy in dealing with another one, particularly another one whom he doesn't know anything about, somebody off the street or whatever, is a neighbour. In another discussion with the Lord, he explained who are brothers and sisters, different to neighbours, because brothers and sisters are those who are already in the church, in the faith, like you and I and all this. We're brothers and sisters, rather than just neighbours, because neighbours can be people who are outside the true belief, but by doing good to them as much as you can, you may be able, through that fruit bearing and that sacrifice, to twist their heart in the right direction. And the third category that he uses when Christ was talking to his disciples privately, he called them friends, not neighbours, not brothers and sisters, but friends, being those who were already at a high spiritual level and understood the subtleties and depths of Christ and his mission. Remember those three things: neighbours, brothers, sisters, mothers and fathers, fill that category, and friends. The other thing about this particular parable, which I often mention, is because this Samaritan did not know who this person was that he helped. For all intents and purposes, that person that got beaten up might have been a very evil one. And maybe he got beaten up not just for the sake of being beaten up, but because he himself may have provoked something. We don't know about that. But the point here is that the Samaritan did not take him within his own fold, within his own household, within his own precious enclave, his secret corner. Because this person may have caused trouble there. We've had that happen to us often. You innocently try and help somebody who you think is down and out, and before you know it, they turn against you and sort of destroy a lot of the things that you thought were righteous in a sense. So that's another sort of thing that we have to be aware of, particularly in this day and age, not only by those who we meet outside the church, but unfortunately, even those who are within, who are not living spiritual lives, can cause you problems through jealousies and envies and hatreds and all sorts of things that goes into their head that they don't struggle with, but live out with their life. And that's the key point about being one that's walking to the path of salvation and one that's just not doing anything. You have to be very astute, very aware of what your mind and heart is saying and what you are doing. And if one of those is not in the plane of righteousness, then drop it, fight against it. Don't take it out on somebody else or something else, because that's going to wreck your own spiritual progress, and actually wreck it quite badly if you are part of the church already, because by righteousness you should not be doing those sorts of things. Today, the beginning of the Nativity Lent, if you like the Christmas Lent, we celebrate the canonization of Saint Herman of Alaska. In the 20th century, the canonization or the glorification of saints became quite rare. Of course, you had the communist East, which had lots of saints, but on account of the politics, they would not be recognised. And in the West, there was always debates about who is and who isn't a saint. In the church, the original church, the Orthodox church, we don't have this sort of devil's advocate thing that you may have heard about, where if a person is deemed to be a saint, there's this sort of devil's advocate, faced by lawyers again, brought out to inspect whether they are worthy of being a saint. It's very funny how a sinful person who's not a saint can inspect to somebody who is a saint and get to understand it. Doesn't make any sense at all. If you're going to see who is a saint, you yourself have to be walking some sort of righteous path to see that. In any case, very few during the 20th century were glorified. The thing is this, that a person who is a saint doesn't have to be inspected, because they are already known, whether it be locally or more widely in the world where they reside, of their holy life. The thing is that hierarchs today and in the recent past were very reluctant to put their foot out on account of criticisms that might fall upon them, to glorify them. And by glorification we mean to officially write them into the calendar, as has been done with St. Herman, and to allow services and icons and all those sorts of things to be allowed to be done for the saintly person. Insofar as St. Herman of Alaska is concerned, had it not been for the work of Father Herman and Father Seraphim of Platina, the chances of St. Herman ever being glorified would have been very rare, certainly in the early days. It was primarily by the work of Father Herman that he did become glorified, St. Herman, who was not a priest, he was not an ordained person, but a monk, a simple monk, living on a tiny island, Spruce Island, which occasionally was completely swamped by tsunamis, because it's near the Arctic Circle. And he lived a life of internal prayer and struggle, very lonely, because nobody ever went there. There was only wild animals of various types. In the book, Not of This World, Father Herman details some of the aspects of what inspired him to have St. Herman glorified. In other words, it was already known that this monk Herman was a saintly person. But how do you push that into the official realm so that it will be entered into the calendar of saints, the annual calendar of saints? Not easy. Too many enemies stand up and want to oppose it. In any case, Father Herman, when he finished his seminary, was still just a lay person wandering around the USA giving lectures um, to ordinary people, you know, ordinary youth and whatever, showing them slides. Ended up on Spruce Island one day and went there to pray to St. Herman. Living there with him, living on that island after St. Herman died, was another monk, Father Girassi, who was looking after the gravesite and the chapel that was on Spruce Island. And Father Herman spent some time with Father Girassi, who, by the way, was put on the cover of, maybe not in the cover of National Geographic magazine, big colour picture of him walking through the forest. So it certainly made an impact. And Father Herman was a young man and just recently graduated. He had a girlfriend. He was trying to find out, like many people of his age, what am I going to do with my life? You know, travelling around, he's praying here, he's going to see these elders here and these people there, and nothing seems to be happening. So he tarried a while on Spruce Island and was reading and walking around and praying at St. Herman's grave, which was a very shallow grave because he was buried by children, Aleut children, Aleut natives. One of the books he was reading was about Father Saint Seraphim of Sarov, and how he was asked about the times that we live in. Why are there no great manifestations of sanctity and miracles and all this? And Saint Seraphim said, it's very simple. People do not have resolve anymore in their life. They do not take that, that courageous path to do something that is according to the gospel ideal. And having read that particular passage, the future Father Herman was inspired. He ran out to the grave of St. Herman, fell down on it and said, St. Herman, I'm going to make a resolve. And he heard a voice, dream. He actually heard this voice, dream, dream. He said, I want to dedicate my life into some sort of mission here in American land, whatever. And then he heard the voice saying again, and what else? He said, and I want to strive to glorify you as a saint, to push you through into the official circle so that we recognized throughout the land. And then the voice said, and what else? I get that very clearly. And he said, he was a bit lost at that point. He said, well, send me a fool like myself, thinking about his girlfriend, actually, thinking about having a wife, children. And after that, he didn't hear anything. After that, there was no other comment that came. And after he left Spruce Island and went about a little while, he met the fool that he prayed for, who was Father Seraphim. And the two of them were the ones that established the Platina Monastery and all the other things that came with that. So it's a big phenomena in the West. In Russia and the Eastern lands, it's totally accepted and probably upheld more than it is now here because of the various envies and jealousies here, who don't like anything to do when somebody is declared saintly and righteous. There's always these enemies that want to stand up against it and say, oh, look, I saw him womanizing, or I saw him eating a piece of meat on a Lenten day or something like that. He can't be a saint, stupid things like that. Excuse me. In any case, we celebrate St. Herman 3 times a year. Today's the canonization. On the 25th of December, according to the world calendar, which is when they celebrate Christmas, we also have St. Herman's name's day, I think it is. Name's day. So it's a big feast day for us too, Don't think that 25th of December is going to be just a normal thing. No, it's a big thing. And we celebrate him again during the year, third time. So we have 3 feast days for this chapel. I think that's probably all I wanted to tell you. When you were reading the Akafist to St. Herman, you might have remember there was a passage where St. Herman says that we are warriors. Warriors against what? The demonic realm. We're warriors against the fallen nature that we carry. Warriors against all those temptations which are not supposed to be according to humankind, but which were brought in because of our fallen nature. And in fact, he says in one of his writings that we walk through legions of demons. Imagine if your eyes were open, you saw that. Legions of demons surround, especially those who are striving to keep the commandments. That's whom the demons attack more than anything. And many people who have tried to live a pious life, on their repose, their eyes begin to open and they start to see these things. I remember, I might have told you that the 2 elderly couple that recently passed away and we baptised, Bill and Betty, when she was dying in her bedroom, we were there. All of a sudden she looked around and said, which, you know. So she was obviously seeing something that we could not see, but it was something, some sort of temptation upon her. All instrumented so that we lose our orientation and strength to ignore those sorts of things if they come about. You don't entertain them at all, whether they come in thought, words, whether they come in visions or anything like that. Walk away and that will always save you. That's one of the rules of spiritual life, of internal life, not to allow those things to bother us, because in many cases it's the thoughts and the feelings that bother us more than anything else, and there's really no truth behind them if you look carefully. There's nothing really happening. A lot of it's our imagination about what might be, which really is the way it's going to be. God help us through these tyrannical times to wear that courage in our lives and not be afraid to stand up to whichever way it comes, but to show ourselves as the true ones that we promised when we were baptized, that we promised to serve the Lord and keep his commandments. God help us with that, and may St. Herman also assist us in this time to actually bring forth fruit for others, for our neighbours that are still not in the church, but who desperately need that, even though they do not know that. That's one of the tragedies, they do not know.